was waiting on you. All right. Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting this evening. Glad to be back in the home quarters, so to speak. Glad you could make it with us. We do have a, yeah, home court advantage. We do have a quorum. The meeting is open. I'm going to ask Council Member Sean Tiemann if he'll lead us in the pledge and invocation, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You would pray with me. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for giving us this day, this city, and this country, Lord. Lord, thank you for allowing us and giving us the privilege to live in a country that it is one nation under God. Lord, be with us as we make decisions on behalf of the city. Lead, guide, and direct us in everything that we do. In your most holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Sean. All right, this evening we have a proclamation for Mental Health Awareness Month. Diana, you want to come forward, please? All right, I'll read the proclamation this evening. Whereas mental health is an essential part of overall individual health, and it is vital that every individual, family, and organization in the community understand its importance. And whereas it is essential to eliminate disparities in mental health treatment by promoting well-being for all, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, language, place of residence, age, or financial ability, and to ensure equity of access, delivery of services, and improvement of outcomes. Whereas every individual must have the opportunity for and the access to early and appropriate mental health screening, assessment, and referral to quality treatment. And whereas it is important to conduct such screening, assessment, and referral in our local criminal justice systems, our private and community mental health, substance use, and primary care settings. And whereas adults and children with mental illness must have ready access to the best treatments, services, and supports leading to recovery, and a diverse and quality mental health workforce is essential to these services. And whereas the state of Texas designated Texoma Community Center as the local mental health authority, intended to be a vital component and strategic partner to all stakeholders and service providers who make up the local continuum of behavioral health services in the Texoma region. And whereas the Texoma Health Foundation partners with the Meadows Foundation to support the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute across the state of Texas. Whereas the Texoma Behavioral Health Leadership Team, formed in 2017, brings together local community stakeholders from many agencies and many areas of education, healthcare, business, government, law enforcement, judiciary, nonprofit management, mental health, nonprofit funding, and family advocacy to collaborate towards much needed local solutions to concerns such as access to care, jail diversion, stigma reduction, and equitable funding. And whereas to say all these Texoma area community partners support the implementation of the OK to Say initiative to reduce mental health stigma in the North Texas communities and institutions. Now therefore I, David Plyler, Mayor of the City of Sherman, Texas, by the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim May 2021 Mental Health Awareness Month. The City of Sherman, and urge all citizens, individually and collectively, to take steps to learn about mental health and to get involved in local dialogue and collaborations happening here in the Texoma community around mental health issues, as this is needed in order to affect improved outcomes and attitudes, and let our call to arms be the improved life of, but one is a win for all. So with that, Diana, I'm going to present you with this proclamation, and if you'll say a few words about what you do and about the Mental Health Awareness Month.
My name is Diana Cantu, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Local Mental Health Authority and the Local Intellectual and Developmental Disability Authority here in Grayson County and Fannin County as well. It's a Texoma Community Center, and this is very near and dear to us as the Local Mental Health Authority. We're very thankful for your support and for recognizing May as Mental Health Awareness Month. Without your support, we could not do what we do every single day. And I think it's important for us to recognize the month of May for mental health awareness. Many of us have loved ones, many of us have friends that have mental health issues, or even really behavioral health issues with substance use kind of sprinkled in it. So I think it's important that we recognize that, and I wanted to say thank you for your support and for this proclamation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll take citizens' comments. These items will be addressed on the agenda. Is there anyone here this evening to address the council? If not, we'll enter into public hearing. Linda, if you'll read D1 for us, please.
Ordinance 6377, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman accepting and approving a service and assessment plan and a Phase Number 1 assessment roll for the Bel Air Village Public Improvement District, making a finding of special benefit to the property in Phase 1 of the district, levying special assessments against property Phase 1 of the district, and establishing a lien on such property, providing for payment of the assessments in accordance with Chapter 372 Texas Local Government Code as amended, providing for the method of assessment and the payment of the assessments, providing penalties and interest on delinquent assessments, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Linda. Robbie?
Yes, this is the final public hearing related to the administrative actions that need to be taken to get this PID in place. This ordinance does two main things. Number one, it has to do with the final adoption of the service and assessment plan, which we've had lots of help with from UNICAP. Devin's here from UNICAP as well to address any questions you guys might have. Chris is also here from Abernathy, our attorney firm. So it establishes and accepts the service and assessment plan. This is the same plan that you saw last council meeting, so no changes there. There were some, we took preliminary off of it, but the substance of that has not changed. And then the second major thing is that it is the actual action to levy the assessment. So one is the assessment plan. Second is actually taking action to approve the ordinance that actually levies this tax or assessment on these property owners. There will be another agenda item that relates to a couple of other agreements related to the PID, but these two items tonight, D1, the ordinance, and then E2, Resolution 6737, will be the final actions related to this PID, or Phase 1 of the PID anyway.
Okay. Thank you, Robbie. Is there anyone here to address this item this evening? Okay. If not, we'll close public hearing and consider the adoption of the ordinance. Council, questions, discussion for our representatives here this evening?
There's no discussion. I'll make a motion that we approve or adopt 6377.
Second that.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, Linda, if you'll read E1 for us, please.
Resolution 6736, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman finding that Encore Electric Delivery Company, LLC's application for approval to amend its distribution cost recovery factor to increase distribution rates within the city should be denied, authorizing participation with OCSC, authorizing the hiring of legal counsel and consulting services, finding that the city's reasonable rate case expenses shall be reimbursed for the company, finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed is open to the public as required by law, requiring notice of this resolution to the company and legal counsel.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Robbie?
Yeah, so this is our annual dance that we do through the PUC and the state process for the request of Encore to raise their rates and recoup certain costs that they have in maintaining their system. As we do every year, Encore submits their request. We, as part of our membership in the steering committees, act to deny the request so that negotiations can be made to settle somewhere in between zero and their $97 million. So there'll be more action coming in the future on this after this is vetted out by the steering committee. Right now, this would mean $1.35 for the average residential customer if they were to get all 97 million of what they're trying to recoup in their capital costs. So more to come on this at a later date, but this item is our rejection of their request for this amount of refund.
All right, thank you, Robbie. Council, questions, comments?
My comment is I'm glad we have a steering committee that will do this every time.
Absolutely.
Robbie, is this a statewide rate adjustment that they're trying to do, or is it just local here?
Yeah, it's system-wide. So all throughout their system, they've spent over the last year, and they do this every year. They've spent nearly $100 million, so that their desire is to pass all of those what they consider eligible costs, reasonable costs, onto the ratepayers, and then they go through this process through the steering committee to see what really our steering committee believes is reasonable and reimbursable. So, but it is for their entire system-wide cost that they're trying to make these rate adjustments for.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. If you'll read E2 for us, please.
Resolution 6737, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman authorizing execution of certain documents in connection with the Bel Air Village Public Improvement District, including without limitation the certain landowner agreement and Bel Air Village Public Improvement District Phase 1 reimbursement agreement. Finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Linda, Robbie?
Yeah, as mentioned earlier, these two are the last agreements related to the Bel Air PID. The two agreements are the landowner agreement and the reimbursement agreement. This reimbursement agreement shouldn't be confused with what we did last meeting. Last meeting we amended the master development agreement, which dealt with the city's portion of infrastructure improvements. This agreement, reimbursement agreement, deals with the public improvement district portion of, or developer portion of improvements. So last time was our portion, this time is the developer's portion. So this really just sets forth the mechanisms to reimburse the developer, mainly through PID assessments for his cost of developing Phase 1. The second piece is the landowner agreements, which really just set forth his agreement as the current property owner to enter into this public improvement district and have taxes and assessments levied on the property. And then it also binds any future landowners during the tenure of this PID to be in agreement and to be bound by the assessments that will be in this geographic area as well. So two main agreements that are going to be, or that would be approved through one resolution. The only other thing really remaining related to this subject of the Bel Air is the reinvestment zone language and the plan, the project and financing plan that will come probably at next council meeting, maybe at the one after that, but somewhere in the next month, just to marry up all these PID documents and agreements that have been passed and the existing reinvestment zone number 7. So that'll be the last kind of activity as it relates to that.
Council, any questions?
Second.
Motion, couple seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. All right, at this time we'll receive a presentation from Rob Ray, Director of Development Services, regarding general zoning ordinance updates.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Good evening,
Good
Rob.
evening.
All right, Rob. It's great to be back in council chambers
Yeah.
for this meeting. For some background information, before I get started, this is a primer presentation just to give you an intro on some of the zoning change updates that we've been working with internally with staff and also with P&Z. Our anticipation is that the next council meeting on May 17th, that would be when the public hearing would be and proposed adoption. Purpose of the zoning ordinance is really a lot of things, but in a nutshell, it's to promote health, safety, welfare, lessens congestion, encourage appropriate use of land within the city of Sherman. Tonight I'll talk about three major or primary things: the patio home ordinance, the fence ordinance, and then some other just administrative cleanup items that we've been looking at in the last year. A little bit of history on the patio home, why we're here tonight. In October, council directed us as staff and to get together with P&Z and come up with some ideas on ways to improve the patio home ordinance. That was in October 19th of last year. On November 17th, we set up the subcommittee. That subcommittee met on March 2nd of this year. And at our last P&Z meeting, P&Z reviewed the draft ordinance and approved the ordinance subject to certain motions. They made three different motions for that draft ordinance. So after y'all asked me to look at these things, staff to look at these things, I compared some of the zoning districts that we have in Sherman to some other cities, some peer cities that we have. And one thing that I noticed is that Sherman really only has one residential zoning district. And there's two, technically, R1 and SF1, but they really have the same regulations. McKinney, Anna, Melissa, and even Denison all have multiple single-family zoning districts. The different standards regulation that those districts have vary, but they're all similar to what Sherman has for its one 60-foot lot district. Our current patio home ordinance allows for home builders to have a different size or different regulations, different setback requirements on a smaller lot. On the right is a graphic that shows what the patio home minimum lot width is and the setbacks that are allowed compared to our typical 60-foot lot R1 SF1 minimum. So on the left you have the 40-foot patio home. On the right you have the 60-foot single-family R1. The variances vary, it varies or the setbacks vary. 20 foot in the front yard compared to 25. In the back, it's 10 feet versus 25. So that's a comparison to what our existing ordinance is and the patio home standards that we have. The other part of it is that the patio home requires that open space be dedicated for any developments over 50 lots of patio homes. One of the reasons this came up, in my opinion, from council is that we had a number of developers that came in with a regular size lot wanting patio home standards. These are the 6 that we've identified that have 60-foot lots or greater that have patio home standards. And if you compare that of what the buildable area is for those 2 lots, what you have on the right is our R1 standard, and on the left is a 60-foot lot with patio home regulations, setbacks. You can build a much bigger home on that lot, which is something that I think home builders want to do to get a little bit more square footage. So, lots of text. I'm sorry. I'll summarize this as well as I can. What we're recommending as staff and what P&Z approved was to increase or to change the maximum lot width to 50 feet so that if someone wants to build patio homes, if it's a lot larger than 50 feet, then they can't build to the patio home standards for setbacks. Create a maximum living area of 2,500 square feet. And then open space, this was our staff recommendation. I'll talk about the motion. This is where it differed from P&Z. But for developments with patio homes 25 to 49, they would have to dedicate 5% open space, and 50 or more would dedicate the 10% open space, which is currently in our ordinance. We also added language to that if multiple phases occurred, that those would be combined in the requirement for open space. So if you have preserve phase 2, they have 20 patio homes, and then you have the preserve phase 3, and they have 30 patio homes, they would have to provide that 10% of open space. And then the last is just no duplexes or two-family dwellings would be permitted in a patio home ordinance. Our current standard for duplexes is minimum 60-foot lot, and that's the primary reason for that. P&Z's motion approved it with the change to make 5% dedicated for open space for 5 homes or more. So they reduced it from 25 homes to 5 homes to provide that open space requirement. And that was the motion that they wanted to present to you all. So moving forward on some long-term things, we did look at creating a whole new zoning district for a patio home size lot, a 50-foot lot. And if we did this as a city, it could be called the SF50 or something similar to that, and it would have all the similar requirements in that zoning district for a patio home, but it would be a separate zoning district. It wouldn't be an SUP. We hesitate in making that recommendation this time to create a new zoning district because our current future land use plan does not indicate any locations within the city that would allow for a more medium density or high density residential product. So what we will be coming back to you with is at our budget meeting talking about a potential master plan update. This would be a small scale, not a full everything, because there's a lot of different elements that are going on with the master plan, but establishing those growth priorities of where a zoning district like this would go, and creating a future land use plan. This is the last land use plan that was adopted by the City of Sherman in 2009, I believe. And if we did this, a master plan update, it would correspond with the current plans of the water wastewater master plan, the thoroughfare plan, and the parks master plan. So with that, I'm going to pause for a second before we move on to the fence ordinance and ask if there's any discussion or questions.
Let me jump in on a couple of things here. Number one, so we're not asking for any action tonight. This is really just a presentation to tee up what would be brought back at next council meeting in the form of an ordinance for all the things he's talking about tonight. So that's number one. Number two, just want to highlight that there's kind of a short-term plan and a longer-term plan. The short-term plan would be what's adopted or presented in ordinance form next council meeting. The longer-term plan is what he's talked about here. It's likely that we would come back not only and incorporate the things that we've talked about with patio homes, but also possibly these changes to have more zoning districts for single-family residential to be comparable to what other cities do. So in order to kind of take a bite of the apple right now, we could do what he's proposed and bring that back next time, knowing that in a year's time or something like that, we would bring back a comprehensive plan for all of our single-family residential zoning districts in concert with updating the comprehensive master plan on many other things as well.
Sounds like a lot of extra work.
It is a lot of work that will go into this for sure.
Let me be clear with what I'm hearing you say, because maybe I'm misunderstanding. But you're saying that you're going to look and designate certain areas for patio homes within our city?
The future land use plan would be developed through the comprehensive plan update. It would identify areas that would be appropriate. It wouldn't be any rezoning. There would be no plan to rezone. That rezoning effort would happen from applicants as it is now. Someone comes in for a rezoning.
I don't know how everybody else feels, but to me, we're going through this mixed use, different areas and that, and so it sounds like we're limiting our developers by saying this would be a certain spot, and when we've already gone through and worked on doing a mixed use for other places. And I know it's more acreage, but I'm just saying, now we're gonna say there's a specific place you can build. Am I wrong?
Well, no, you're not wrong. I think I'm taking sort of. I don't think that patio homes are the future exception. I think they are the rule. I mean, when's the last time we denied one?
Yeah, that's what I'm
So,
saying.
and from the developments that I'm very familiar with, it's all patio homes. I mean, that's the whole thing. I can't tell you the last time I was in a development that wasn't.
Well, you're the one that came and
yeah.
told me the younger people are wanting less land.
Yeah, they don't want
They
yards.
don't want that
They want
land to
amenities.
deal with. So I have to realize younger people think different than I do. So I'm saying, why are we spending time saying they can only be in certain spots? When I think Josh and I both are saying they're gonna be everywhere.
Well, so
What you're saying is the current zoning needs to be changed to allow for patio homes, not necessarily set up a separate designation for patio homes. Because they're gonna, I don't know, maybe I'm hearing that wrong, but they're gonna be having to go through the same hurdles to come in and get a rezone that they would have to do
Right.
just to get a variance anyways. It's the same process.
Yeah,
So we're not really making it any easier for them.
Yeah, it would be less work for us in the end to make patio homes the standard and anything else something they have to come in and get an SUP for.
Right.
At the rate we're going, I mean, am I wrong? I can't remember the last time that we A, denied an SUP for patio homes, and B, the last time we talked to a developer, it's like, oh yeah, we're all good 60-foot lots from here to Sunday. That doesn't happen, does it? Somebody tell me I'm wrong if I'm wrong.
More of the houses that outside of any of the new PDs have been the 60-foot lots. And most of the reason, at least from our perspective, is they are all keeping the patio home developments under 50 lots because of the dedication of open space.
Right.
So
but
really,
it has been a mix. It has been a mix of both 60s and patio home lots. Number one. Number two, just want to clarify, we're required to have a comprehensive master plan that involves the use of a future land use map. It's that colored one right there, and is that it as
this
well?
is the future land use plan. That's the zone map.
Okay,
Zoning
so this doesn't say you absolutely can't build such and such in such and such location. This is really a planner that says, hey, based on a number of factors, and Rob's a planner, so he can probably go into infinite detail on this, but based on where the major arteries and thoroughfares are, based on topography, based on all these different factors, we as planners think that this is a pretty good picture of how the types of land use that would be available around the city. And so what Rob is talking about is for both patio homes, if it's its own separate zoning regulation, along with manufacturing one, and office, and retail, and single family, and residential agriculture, all the zoning districts that we have are going to be plotted in a map like that by a consultant or us, depending, we'll talk more about that process at a different time. But hey, let's update our land use plan because it's been future land use plan because it's been over 10 years and things have changed in the last 10 years. So really the question is tonight, some of what I'm hearing is, well, hey, let's not do anything. If we're going to have to redo it in whenever we get this done, let's not do anything this time and wait. Or we can do something that addresses part of the issue, knowing that there's kind of this burning issue, and then wrap it all up when all of this comes back.
Well, the downside would be we just keep going through the same process until we get the new master plan done.
That's right.
I'm okay with that.
But even with the master plan, they still have to go through the same process. Because the plan is just saying, this is what we expect the future to look like. You still got to
You're
come in
saying
and
we don't
request
wanna watch
rezoning
this.
and go through the process.
Exactly,
I don't
but when
want
they
this
come in,
idea.
if there's new zoning districts, when an applicant would come in, the question that P&Z would ask us as staff is, does this align with the future land use plan? Is the
I get
plan
that.
that you all came up with as a city?
Well, and I think too, just as a side note for me, I don't mind a little bit larger house on a regular size lot. So I want to make sure that that's still protected.
Yeah.
Whatever the mechanism is for that, if somebody wants to come in and apply for variance across an entire neighborhood for single family. I don't know what the mechanism they would have to get take away some of the setback off the back of the lot.
And one of the things that we've been counseled is that with variances and exceptions is that there really should only apply, because the Board of Adjustments is the one that ultimately makes that decision, they should only apply in situations where there's constraints, and that if Board of Adjustment is always just approving 50-foot wide lots, and that it would be better for council to actually make the change to the zoning ordinance so that doesn't happen.
I agree.
Well, Rob, we've had people who have complained about the patio homes, because the patio homes are being built, next to a regular R1 home, and they, I understand that the patio home is probably a very nice home and everything, but it just doesn't conform with what is in the neighborhood. Whereas if we go with this ordinance, there would be at least 5 or more, hopefully, homes, or a number of patio homes, so they would pick a specific location. And and so I think we should go along with this, personally. I like the idea of setting some standards. We haven't been setting standards, and I like the idea of setting standards for some green space, to make sure that there's green space in the area. And also, I don't think we wait another year before we do something, or 6 months, because we keep getting more and more requests for patio homes, so we need to come up with a standard. I don't think we can wait.
But what we're saying, Pam, is that they're gonna keep coming to us anyway, so we can make those decisions. Then while they're working on this.
But my
even
understanding,
even after it's done, it's still going to come to us, because
What you won't get if this were to be approved, our short-term recommendation is that you won't get developments with 60-foot lots coming in for patio homes. It will be actual 50-foot lots that are coming in. That's the only difference that would happen with our recommendation.
let me ask you a question about the green space. If I'm understanding right, five houses or more, 5% green space, that's gonna be like, they're gonna have to dedicate a 15 by 16.
Yeah, internally we've been trying to make that work, trying to figure out how that worked. Our initial 25 lots would make it so that if you had a development, you could dedicate one lot to a pocket park.
Right.
Put a playground in there. That makes more sense. The 5 homes, patio homes, does make it a little bit of a challenge to get that right.
Seems like it'd make it harder for
would we be able to change that from 5 to, 15 or something, just cut the middle of it?
How many patio homes can you put on a city block?
Well, what's the smallest pocket park that we have in the city?
How many patio homes puts that 5% at a lot size? How about that?
15 by 16.
Well, and it depends, because it's the size. It's not the size of those 5 lots.
Right.
It's the size of the entire development.
Right.
So
But if they did-
it could vary depending on the size of the development, the entire development.
But if you went at 5,
Mhm.
right? If you went at 5% at 5 homes, I mean, how many square feet is that they're giving back to you? Is that even the
We
size
did
of
the
a
math
lot?
on that.
So that's 100,000 square feet, right? Is the lot?
5% at 5 homes.
Well, what's
250 square feet?
40 times 100,
It is
so it would be
15 by
4,000
16.
square feet.
well what he's
Beach
asking
lot.
is to get to at least this, so that the donation is at least one lot.
Right.
How many patio homes do you
Yeah,
have
there
to
you go.
get?
And it was about 25.
25.
That sounds like a good number to me.
That's a winner.
25.
So I want one question to clarify for me.
Yep.
If you've got a builder that says, the homes that I build, the front setback's normal, but I want to build further into the backyard because I want to put a 3,800 square foot home on a 60 by 100 lot, there's not going to be any path for them to do that moving forwards?
In our current ordinance, no. If they wanted to build a 60-foot lot, but with a rear setback that's less than 25 feet, between 10 and 25 feet, there would be no
So
way for
they
them
could get
to
a
do that.
variance.
They could get a variance.
Okay.
The intent of the variance in my mind, though, is that it's an irregular lot that you need help with, not the standard lot that you're just trying to get more bang for your buck.
I just think about, like Josh and Sandra both pointed out, in some of the more urban cities growing like we are, they're building big 3,500 square foot homes on standard city lots and just doing very small backyards.
Yeah, they're building 3,500 square foot houses with 10-foot long
Right.
backyards.
On tiny backyards.
Yeah,
Hey,
all
Clint.
the time, every day.
They don't
Hey,
want
Clint.
to maintain
And I
the
think the
yard.
solution there is to have the different zoning standard, have more than just one, so that if that's what they want to do, they can zone it that way from the beginning.
Right.
So that you know what you're getting into. And that helps with planning on utility side too. If we know what areas are going to be more dense than others, that allows us to come up with our comprehensive plan on water and sewer. Because if you're putting one house every acre, well, that's a totally different water size and sewer size capacity than if you're putting a 3,500 acre, 3,500 square foot home
And-
on a
Yes, and you can
1,000 square foot
and you
lot.
can be guided by what adjacent properties exist there already. You wouldn't go out somewhere where they have acre lots and decide that we're gonna zone it for patio or whatever.
So would we have to set the standard for what an irregular lot is?
We kind of already have.
Okay.
Well, it would be up to the board to decide what's irregular.
So
We've had some corner lots that, they've come in and asked for a 6-inch variance because
Like that one in the last
won't
video.
fit.
Right, right.
That makes sense. But if you're
Gotcha.
wanting 18 variances because you bought a lot that you didn't realize you can't put your standard layout on, is that something that we should adjust for or not? Ultimately, it's kind of Rob takes y'all's direction on what goes for variance requests.
But if we make this move on patio homes and a developer came in and said, I want to put in a 50 home development, standard city lots, and have 20-foot setbacks in the backyard, that's something we can make a variance for the entire
Well,
neighborhood.
one thing that you would be able to do is just change the R1 or SF1 setback regulations as a council, recommend us to do that, and we can make that change so that there are different setbacks. For example, McKinney's 60-foot lot has a 20-foot front setback and a 15-foot rear setback. So there's nothing, and every city is different and it varies. There's no consistency in what's done. But we, you as council would be able to give us that guidance to be able to change those zoning districts.
I mean, at the end of the day, houses are getting bigger and lots are getting smaller. We just need our zoning to match that fact of life that we're living.
And that's what he's talking about would be done through this more comprehensive zoning where we're going to have more than one single-family zone.
The long term.
Right now, yeah, a
In
plan
the
a year
short
from
term,
now.
short term is we could do a variance for those guys that want to build a bigger house on a 60-foot lot.
Yeah, it's still a
Yeah.
specific use. It's still a specific use permit with
Obviously, you're not
with
gonna
those.
put, if you're in a string of houses, we're not gonna say, we'll let you build 20 foot from the street when every other house is 30 or 40. But if somebody was building an entire neighborhood and or a block and they wanted to build deeper in the backyard, we could
Yeah.
an exception, a variance for that.
Yeah.
Right, and like I said, that approval would be done by the Board of Adjustments and not by council, so it would be subject to their decision.
Right. As long as they know the direction that where the
Yeah.
council's head's at,
Now is one thing we could bring back to them, because I've heard some suggestions on that, is to within the current zoning districts that we have, we could change the setbacks already. Now, would that have to go to P&Z first for their recommendation to change the setbacks?
Yes, I believe that would need to go to P&Z because that would be a material change to what
Okay,
has been.
so if you guys wanted to tell us, hey, until we get this plan a year from now, I want to do a couple of things. We're hearing some positive things about the making some changes to the as it relates to patio homes, but if setbacks, particularly maybe front and rear setbacks are an issue, then you could say, hey, in addition to this, what you've talked about for patio homes, I want you to adjust the front and rear setbacks to fill in the blank. And then we would take that, staff would take that back through P&Z and bring it back to you. Now, that wouldn't be next council meeting, but we could do it in June? Can we do it in June?
Probably not.
July?
July says.
Okay.
July.
So,
But there's a mechanism in place if somebody wanted to do that for a whole development or a whole
Yeah, it's a variance.
development,
Yeah.
you get a variance. I don't
No,
know.
that's right.
Yeah. think
maybe
we
I'm
leave
wrong,
it.
but I don't know that we're needing to change the front and the back setback.
They can just come to us and ask for a variance, is we can just,
To the, to the Board of Adjustments, yeah, and P and
Yes.
Z.
The board knows that the council's okay with hearing those, that's not a problem for us.
It would increase the number of items that would go to the board as opposed to council making, giving us that direction to make the change to the zoning ordinance. And from a legal standpoint, it would be better for council to do that formally.
And Rob, when was the last P and Z meeting over? Started at 5. When did it complete?
Oh, but this was on there. Typically.
I'm just saying from a item standpoint.
Yeah, we're getting more items at P and Z. More
Why don't they
development.
just meet every week?
Knock it out. Knock it out. Feed everything out.
It's a
Well,
lot.
and I think
it's a lot
our
of-
mission here was
we
to
need more
make
staff
this
for mailing.
easier for both
Yes.
planning and zoning and for council to move these projects down the road because we're getting them all the time.
Yeah.
And we're approving them all the time.
And I think with these recommendations, you will see fewer SUPs for patio homes, because the developers that are coming in for 60-foot lots are going to just go for R1 zoning, or they're going to come in for patio homes and do 50-foot lots. That's a potential. But I definitely hear you about changing the zoning districts.
And
so
then a
that
year from
it's
now,
more
when we
flexible.
have all of this, it makes kind of life easier for 40s, 50s, 60s, lots of varying sizes and
Townhomes.
whatnot.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. Even. So this 5% for 5, did we come down or we felt
Yeah, we're
like
not,
that?
no,
I think it should be 25.
I think we need to go up on that. I agree. And that's
Yeah.
why I just said 15, because it
Yeah.
kind of hits the middle, but if 25 would be equivalent to one patio home.
I think we'd lose opportunities
Mayor.
for people. Sorry.
Okay, Mr. Tracy.
Peter Tracy, 700 block of South Valentine. On this number of patio homes, I was at that wonderful meeting for 5 hours. One of the discussions that the Planning and Zoning Commissioners had was they were concerned about putting a house number quantity on it because they felt like that would leave a loophole for builders to never meet the threshold and not have to provide that 5%. What their thought was, not all of them, but some of them, their thought was, why not base it on the area, not the number of houses? And that way it would require there always to be a provision. And right now there's a development behind my house. One company's developing the land. Home builders are coming in and building the houses. And to me, it seems it would make more sense for the developer to be required to set that space aside than for a home builder to come in and say, well, golly, I got to buy an extra lot so I can give it up. But that was their concern. It was creating a loophole by putting a quantity of houses on. Another issue that I have is, does anybody really have a definition for a patio home? Because what I'm understanding is we're just calling a standard house a patio home so somebody can cram it on a smaller lot, or they have a lot that won't meet standard building requirements. Typically, when you look at a definition of patio home, it's a small home that's built around a recreational area, golf course, lake, or a river, or whatever.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy.
and that's been true of our history as well. We've had patio homes, in Sherman for a while, but traditionally, historically, it's been smaller homes on smaller lots that do have smaller setbacks on the front, back, whatever, but it has been smaller. It's only been recently when developers or builders are trying to maximize lot size to also acquiesce to the desire of the homeowners to have smaller yards and a bigger house. So it's kind of the nature of patio homes has changed over the last few years as well.
It's just the nature of residential homes, period.
Yeah.
Does this proposal still allow for a 0 lot line?
Yeah, the side yard setback would either be a 5 and 5 or a 0 and 10. That wouldn't
So
change.
they could potentially have 10-foot spacing between the houses all the way.
They would have 10 feet no matter what.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
okay,
where
fair
they
enough.
would put their
Yeah.
fence. If the wall of the building might be their fence on the one side.
One of the very
Yeah.
first ones was Madison Place.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking about.
Until they Put them on the lot line, one side of the house, and then had that 10 feet. Did well.
Yeah.
Well, but one thing I keep thinking about are the ones on Rex Cruise, and I mean, that's so narrow through there anyway, and then the homes are right there. You know, so that's what keeps coming to my mind when we're doing things, talking about lot lines.
Well, we appreciate you spending your time working on this. That's a lot of work, and I know you guys spend a lot of time at your meeting doing that. I would like to see us discuss further later on down the road what it looks like to maybe change some of the setbacks for at least the back side of the yard for some of these urban homes on single family. And that's a discussion for a different day probably, but.
So you guys don't want us to bring back something on that right now? Is that correct?
I think we wait and see what the overall land use.
Okay. So we'll bring.
Master plan and all that comes back.
Okay. So what about this issue on the patio homes then? Do you want to move forward at a council meeting coming up soon on what he's recommending here, and then come back with our big master plan here in the next year? Or do you want to take no action on anything related to patio homes right now?
I think there's no harm in moving forward on this and not moving forward on the other thing, just so it's ready. Sitting in,
Okay. It will help out some of the issues that we've said, but we know it's not.
We've asked for this for.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. That's why we brought it to you and wanted to.
I think we need to act on it. P&Z spend.
Can I ask a fire question? You woke up, didn't you? On the zero lot lines, alrighty, do we have any specific requirements? Because, I know as far as in apartments they do and stuff, but with houses with zero lot lines, is there any extra protection to keep fires from getting from one house to another, or anything like that?
Well, that is required. You can't have two zeros
Back
back
to
to
back, side to
back.
side.
You
Okay.
still have to have 10 feet between.
Okay, all right. I mean, I'm just, because we keep wanting to build houses bigger on smaller lots.
Yeah.
And my concern is,
in the IRC and the
stagger it.
construction code, once you get within so many feet apart, they can't have side soffits
Yep.
in the bottom of the house. They have to be vented at the top, so embers can't get sucked in to your house if your neighbor's house catches fire and stuff like that. But that's all in IRC.
I don't
because
know
I
how
know
they
that,
work.
like in San Francisco, you have to have 1 inch between houses. An inch. I mean, they have, that's true. I mean, there cannot be touching. And I just have visions of us getting like, that's why I'm
Yeah,
asking.
well, we have to stagger them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's staggered. Yeah,
Can we
you
run a
can't
fire
do that.
truck through there?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
As long as there's no concern on that, that's fine. I just was wanting to
Okay, let's go
clarify.
with this one out.
All right.
Okay.
We're okay with that 5 and 5 thing?
No, I don't like the
No.
5 and
5 and 5.
You're saying you wanted at least 15, right?
Go back to 25.
I think 25 is
25
better.
to 15.
If it's a
25
production builder or developer, that's going to be more than 25, period. And if it's smaller than that, it's going to probably use somebody local. And I think we are
Think
leaving
about the loophole.
potential
Think about what you
houses
can do on
unbuilt
that. Get
if
that,
they have to scramble
but
to find
know
it
that
half
we're-
a yard somewhere.
Okay.
All right.
all clear as mud, right?
Good.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
You got all that, Rob?
That was the hard one, right?
Now to fences.
Now to the fence
Oh
ordinance.
my goodness.
Pat them
All right.
down for weapons. If
So
it's
one
talking
of
about
one of
fences.
the reasons for bringing this to your attention and to P&Z is because we're getting a lot of items on and P&Z Board of Adjustments for fence variances and exceptions. These are two different examples in Sherman. This fence is an exception to allow a fence on the property line, or actually 2 feet off the property line, instead on a corner lot. So this is something that's not allowed typically, but they got a variance for it. This is a fence in Magnolia Village that is following the rules. They're allowed to build a 4-foot high fence on their corner lot against a side street. It doesn't give you much privacy, but that is following the rules. We see a lot of these in Austin Landing as well. So we're wanting to update this, make it a little bit easier for homeowners on this, and to allow more privacy. So this is our current ordinance, and it's taken me about a year to figure it all out. There are some interesting things. So the red lines are where 3 feet ornamental fence is allowed in the front yard. The side yard is allowed a 6-foot fence, and the rear yard is allowed an 8-foot fence. And this is on a normal lot that just, squished in between 2 houses. And on a corner lot where the other street is facing the other road, you have a side yard restriction here of only 4 feet on the side yard from the front of the house to 25 feet back from that side street. And then they can do an 8-foot fence in this area, a 6-foot fence here, and then everything else. So it's and when when homeowners come in asking for a fence, and we say you've got to go to council or to P&Z for that, we usually don't. We'd like to update that.
I can see why.
Basically, yeah.
So what we're recommending for residential fences is simplifying this to allow a 4-foot ornamental fence in the front yard and up to an 8-foot fence, privacy fence, in the side and rear yards. On corner lots, we would allow up to an 8-foot fence on the side yard and pretty much all the way around to allow for that flexibility for homeowners to be able to build a 6-foot fence, an 8-foot fence in those areas. The hope that we would have is that we would reduce the number of variances and exceptions with P&Z and Board of Adjustments, and make it easier for home builders and the like. The one thing that we wanted to update with this is that our sight distance and visibility. Part of fences and building fences on a side yard is so that there's visibility for traffic. So our current ordinance says that no fences or hedges are within 15 feet of the intersection of 2 street lines. That's pretty much what it says. Our recommended change is no fence or hedge within 25 feet of the intersection of 2 street lines, and no fence or hedge within 10 feet of the intersection of a street and an alley. And that any variances to that sight distance wouldn't go through Board of Adjustments, would go through our city engineer for approval. So what that would, I'm going to go back to the last slide. What that would mean is that this area here is 25 feet back from two street crossing. That in this area here, they would not be able to build a fence or have shrubs. If that corner was here, that 25 feet would be in there, would still be in their back lot. This is an example of that sight distance triangle in another city in the Metroplex where their backyard has been clipped so that this 6-lane arterial and this local street can have the sight distance that they need. Make sense? So multifamily. We get a lot of requests for exceptions on multifamily, the perimeter wall fence. Currently, the requirement is a 6-foot masonry perimeter wall to surround the development. There is not one development that I know of in the city of Sherman that has built a 6-foot perimeter wall. So all of them have asked for exceptions. Steeplechase Farms, this is an example of their fence that's separated with on masonry columns 40 to 48 feet apart. And these are all new apartments on 1417 Park Manor apartments. The masonry columns are separated 40 to 56 feet. Brooks, which is one of the newer ones, separated by 24 to 40 feet. And then the villas of Park Haven are separated about 72 to 88 feet. That's the separation between the masonry columns.
All asked for variance.
Or they were built before that variant, the ordinance was written that way. Either way, it's possible.
What about Washington Place, isn't it?
Not multifamily, I just asked the same question, but it's
But townhome.
So what our recommendation that we proposed to P&Z was to maintain the 6-foot masonry or wrought iron with masonry columns perimeter fence around the multifamily development. That masonry columns shall be separated at a reasonable distance that is approved by the director or our office. The motion that was approved by P&Z was that, same as the top part, but masonry columns to be separated at 24 feet on property line facing public streets and 32 feet on other property lines.
As an owner of 10,000 square feet of side yard, Rob, I'm very happy with everything you brought to us about this.
Have you ever tried to pull out onto Lambeth at Wood?
Oh, it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Those
saying.
shrubs.
All you gotta do is think about these, and then you're like, oh yeah.
And 10 foot off the street. Now, that picture didn't show that, but the original picture you showed us for the corner, it's 10 foot off the street, no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah.
And 25 foot back.
Yeah, that
And
fence
I
on
like
the
that
picture was like right on the street, and I was like, yeah, that's a little close.
Okay.
We also updated it, we added a section on the fencing, in the fencing ordinance to specify agricultural fencing and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And really, in summary for the fence ordinance, trying to create more flexibility, reduce the number of variances, and improving the clarity, making it so that our public can actually understand the ordinance.
Great.
Awesome.
Okay. Wonderful.
Thanks, Rob.
Questions?
When can we vote on this?
So this is the last part of it, and I'll go through this really quick. There's some other administrative elements to the zoning ordinance that we're updating, or that we're wanting to update, just references to the list of districts, section 7, referencing the fence ordinance changes, and some added permitted uses and clarifications on SUPs. Just some, really, most of these are administrative items. Section 7, updating the side yard setback for accessory buildings.
Yes.
Part of that is because the fence is not allowed to be within 25 feet of the side yard, so you can't put an accessory building outside of, anyways. This clarifies it because of the fence ordinance. Combining the central business district things into items into one subsection, updating special setback streets, and updating some elements of the signs.
That's great that you picked up all these other things when we mentioned one, so.
Well, and
kudos.
honestly, I have the zoning ordinance, and I just make notes as the year goes on, and
Great,
so.
great. That's
On section 8, updating temporary use permits, what items are allowed for temporary use permits, and then also updating the special use permit list, and just clarifying a few things, and then talking about shipping containers, moving this out of SUPs and moving into temporary use permits, so that they would only have a 6-month time period, of which they would be able to get moved out. And then these are just 3 more sections that we're just updating the penalties for violation. This is per state law, Ryan, from $500 to $2,000, and then just updating definitions and clarifying the matrix has not been updated since 2000, so we're clarifying that.
Hey, Rob, go back to so, obviously Lowe's, grow and stack up more of them there. So what's the plan there? So will they, once this goes in, will they have to come and request, or they grandfathered, or how does that work?
No, if the change were to happen, currently our current standards is that any place that has shipping containers needs an SUP. And so the process would be us going out and saying to Lowe's, you need to get an SUP, and you need to go to P&Z, and then you need to go to council, and 3 months later you can have a shipping
Hire
container.
somebody else to handle that, 'cause I got a long list on
What our proposed recommendation would be is that if we see something like this, we go to them and say, you need to come in for a temporary use permit, and then and it's only a P&Z meeting.
Permit for 6 months, and then after 6 months, they can come back and
Just keep it going.
just keep it going.
They could. It would be up to the Board of Adjustments to be able to say you need to.
What's
I
the
did
permit
see-
fee?
I did see somewhere that
Make it more?
that P&Z is going to hear something about screening on these here. Is that correct?
On the Lowe's, yeah, that will be on the next council meeting.
It's us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if they keep the storage box behind screening, that's an okay
if
thing?
if it's not visible from the main thoroughfare, we don't have an
Can't
issue with
address
it.
anything. I guess this would be some cities take it a little bit too far, but it has to be painted. It has to be on a slab. Can't be in the parking spot. Things like that. So you can look however it wants. It can be sitting on whatever it wants, wherever it wants, as long as they get it
as long as it's approved, yeah.
You gotta come back every 6 months and get a new one?
I think this is a real problem, and I've brought this up several times, and all the things we discussed today, I think this one probably is a little short, but I'm willing to see what I can hear. But they're all over the place, and they're sitting on grass, they're sitting half on the curb, half not. Those eyesore.
We are
See how that
updating
works, but
the penalties of violation.
Yeah, that should
I
help
saw that.
somewhat.
So, and I think I read, I don't remember if it was here. Oh, yeah, okay, with an active building permit.
So for example, Panda Express, south part of 75, they had a
And I agree with
container
that.
out there through the entire process. If they have an active building permit, then they would be allowed to have that storage container without a temporary use permit.
Yeah, David, yeah, 25 on that. Or she had it.
Gotta have room for my stuff.
All right, I'm interested to see. I think
25
this is
of
a
them?
bigger problem than that, but we'll see.
And I went in to talk to Rob earlier because I did not see on here anything about what screening is. And Rob explained to me that the screening is already in there, that a cyclone fence or see-through fence for a lot of the auto places that we've been talking about, that's a violation of our city code to begin with. And that's why it's not on here, because I thought I said, well, where's that? Because we wanted some kind of statement about screening. So, according to Rob, it's on the city code already, that if, whether it be a wooden fence or whether it be something, they put the plastic slats through it or something. So that's already there. So we just have to have code enforcement, carry out that.
And that's always been my big thing is let's enforce what's on the book.
Let's talk about that, the little tire shop that we talked about last.
Yeah.
So they are in violation.
They're not in violation of the SUP if they're if they're storing vehicles, if they're storing junk, if they're storing materials, they need to have that fully screened. What the applicant actually I discussed with the applicant afterwards. He's gonna move his screen to the back of their building so that the front part where where they're actually doing the tire changes, just like Discount Tire or any other, that would be open, but everything in the back of the property would be screened.
It can be ugly, it just has to be hidden, and it has to be in the back.
No.
Isn't that what he's
That's not
saying?
what he's saying. You drive right by there and the chain link fence can stay and everything can be back. They're not gonna have to make any changes to the chain link fence in front that you can see.
As long as if there's
Visible,
yeah,
then
if
it's
the,
out of
if the
violation.
storage is visible.
Hired 2 people now, one.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is they can put up a metal fence, right? That looks very similar to a storage container and be in compliance with our fence.
I don't think. I believe metal is not an approved material.
Oh, is it not?
No.
Oh, it's like every tow yard in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why some of them are in the county.
Well, I don't know. We'll see, but.
Well, and it's every discussion, Willie. We just always keep saying, and we need somebody out there doing it and giving them tickets, giving them fines, whatever. Needs to be done.
I just don't see, and you go to these places, I'm not gonna call these places out, but you go to these places on the weekend and the parking is horrible and this and that, and 20-30% of their parking has these type trailers, or they have temporary buildings, or they have piles of mulch and things out in the parking lot, and it's just unsightly. Today they had unloaded trucks right along the side of the building, and the lumber's up 12 feet tall, and sheetrock and 2x4s, and it looks like crap. I mean.
Well, and the part that's frustrating is there's people who come in and apply and do it right.
Yes.
Keep their places clean, and they're competing with the people who aren't doing it right.
Yeah.
We're gonna get people who won't come in and do that if they're watching their neighbors.
Why would I do it if the big guy on the street's not having to do it?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Rob, very
Thanks a
good.
lot, Rob.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
your.
Yep.
Good work.
Yeah,
The longer you stay
absolutely.
here, we keep finding more stuff to talk to you about. So.
Yes, that's right.
Keep me busy.
Next item, consider a request of True Options Pregnancy Center to temporarily close certain streets for the 6th annual Turkey Trot 5K and Fun Run on Saturday, November 20th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Media questions? Anything? No? All right, so we've got two appointments out in public session. First one's Park and Recreation Advisory Board.
Make a motion to reappoint Amanda Phillips and Ronald Rose.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Thank you. Library Board.
I'm concerned that we would have an applicant that is not a resident of the city of Sherman. I realize we don't have another application, but our
Yeah.
ordinance says that it has to be a resident of the city of Sherman.
That's correct. Our ordinance does say that, specifically for this library board. And two things, just from a staff perspective. So number one, this court has been a vocal kind of supporter of our library, and so we feel like that would be a good, he would otherwise be a good representative for this board, number one. Number two, we have made exceptions in the past as well, particularly for advisory boards. You know, and we kind of distinguish advisory boards from you know, active boards like P&Z, SEDCO, things like that. So our feeling from a staff standpoint is, because we have someone willing, able, very interested, and already active in that kind of arena, and two, because of lack of applications, we would suggest putting him back on, but
Back on?
or I mean putting him on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with that, but I would like to say more than that, let's change the ordinance. I mean, if you're saying
Yeah.
that board is really, whether they live here or not,
Yeah.
I say change the ordinance and not make that a requirement.
Yeah.
Because I'm very excited that somebody would be willing to serve, especially if they're not in our city, but let's change the ordinance.
So I would move to accept Mr. Myrick and also request that the city bring us that change of ordinance to approve in the near future.
I'll second that.
Now that's for the library board.
Correct.
Okay.
Are we, Ryan? Are we good with?
Yeah, I think the action would just be to appoint, but certainly if the direction to staff is to
Gotcha.
bring back an ordinance, that's fine.
Okay.
But the vote would just be to.
Vote for that, and noted from the staff, we'll bring back.
Because it's not agendaed.
That's right.
We also have the other reappointment.
Yes. Picked up the reappointment of Mr. Henson.
Yes, including the reappointment.
Okay.
We've got a motion. Do we get a second?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, council comments. Josh, I'll start with you this evening.
I have no comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment about the mental health proclamation tonight. I saw Harry Lemming, the current chair of the Texoma Behavioral Health Leadership Team, in the audience here. Zach Flores and Terrence Steele and Diana Cantu, all board members. And that organization has their mental health conference coming up this Friday. And it's a Zoom conference for anyone that may be interested. But the interesting thing that they did is they have I believe it's 13 cities across Grayson County this month making mental health proclamations, which is almost every city in Grayson County. They had 2 others tonight, and that's a pretty big deal when you can get all cities in the county unified. So I applaud the Texoma Behavioral Health Leadership Team in their efforts.
Okay.
No comment.
It seems like almost every city council meeting, something about code enforcement comes up. And I would like to recommend that the city look into making every employee a code enforcement officer. Now, that's laughable, but Terrence went to a session, so I am stealing from Terrence. He went to some training, and out of Lancaster, Texas, at their city, they have everybody is considered to be code enforcement. And what they are to do and they should take pride in their city, and as the street crews are driving around, if they see something, you know, that is a violation, then they turn it in to code enforcement. They don't actually write the tickets themselves, but they take pride, and I just say the street crew, our waste management, our police officers that are driving around, and we can go on to the utilities, everybody else, that everybody take pride in their city and take part. We only have so many code enforcement officers. They can't be everywhere, and if you see something, turn it in. And I would like to recommend the city make an effort to present that and even make signs that can be hung in the waste management area, in the street area, wherever you have your offices, that says, we are all code enforcement. If you see something, report it. I'm sure somebody can be a little more articulate with what the sign says, and that our directors of each department push this issue so that helps out our code enforcement. I stole your thunder, Terrence, with your idea.
You on the council.
I did laugh, but I don't disagree. I've often thought, the ones that are on the street are the ones that are seeing it. So I really agree with that. And we would have a cleaner city for looking at us. But I also want to remind you that this week is Teacher Appreciation Week. Be sure and thank your teachers. And they do a lot more than I ever dreamed that they do. So don't think they have a cushy life because they have summers off. They really do.
That's true. So in thanking our teachers, thank you, Mrs. Howitt, who taught most of us on this council.
It still does.
Yes, it still does. Absolutely. Some short announcements. This Friday is Coffee with the Mayor. We'll be at Douglas Distributing, 8 a.m. with Jen Phillips as our guest. So come out, hear some great country music. We are 1 month away from our first concert of Hot Summer Nights 2021. To kick things off this year, we've got Cody Canada and The Departed for some country music. So show up early on Thursday, June 3rd to reserve your spot. And then we've got Craft the Night Away coming on June 19th. It's one of our largest gatherings, so be sure and register for that. Go to downtownsherman.com for more information. With that, the City Council will now hold a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act at Section 551.074 to deliberate on the appointment of a public officer to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Hey, Mayor, we also need to add Section 551087.
And 551.087
to discuss or deliberate commercial or financial information the city's received or business prospects the city seeks to locate, stay, or expand in the city. Do I need to read all this?
Okay.
Okay. We've just identified 087 as another section.
Okay. So at 6:13, we'll go into executive session. Thank you.
Just need to hire the micro machine guys to say the whole thing.
That's right.
I think you just
The guy that did the FedEx commercial.